Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Eden Zero, chapter 216. When we last left our heroes, things were starting to wrap up on Lendard. Ziggy was dead, Aknoella was dead, Cure's been dead for a while. There were no real threats left on Lendard that we were quite aware of. And so everyone started to leave, and that only got more urgent once they found out that even without Rebecca commencing Operation Planet Eater, the Chronofish had changed course to come to Lendard anyway, for reasons we don't quite understand. And so the crew makes it back to the Eden Zero. There's a bit of an uneasy peace brokered between the crew and Eraser and Feather. There's a little reminder that Elsie and Justice are finally having their big sort of, confrontation moment. And the crew is about to leave Lendard when Hermit reveals who the true villain, the true enemy that manipulated Ziggy this whole time was. And it's the Eden's One, which somehow had some sort of AI thing part of it. And that AI grew beyond Ziggy's control and now is trying to destroy Mother, unilaterally? It's a weird little plot beat. And I'm not quite sure where Mashma was going with it. But let's dive right on in chapter 216, Within the Fading Years. And our picture here is Elsie, naked, but with these, angel wings. And also there's this weird, the image quality for the chapter is just not very good here. I looked through the first page or so, and, you can see the sort of low-quality, scan. It's a very rushed scan job, which is weird because they're normally ripped straight from Crunchyroll. But I don't know. Anyway, the Eden Zero is, we open where we left off, with the Eden Zero and the Eden's One, about to face off. And the Eden's One, glares at the Zero as Shiki reacts. The Eden's One? That's what's been controlling Grandpa? Yeah, that's my reaction too. What? The AI opposed Ziggy's goals and kept growing. Ultimately, it developed a mind and purpose of its own. And, Herman even laid out that, this is sort of a leap in logic. And I sort of feel that way. I brought up my concerns last time that I wasn't really big on the fact that, that Ziggy, or that the Eden's One is so, there's no history with the Eden's One. No mystery of this universe can be explained with the Eden's One, given that it's such a new presence, relatively speaking. Anyway, a purpose? Shiki questions, and Hermit tells him the one Ziggy talked about when he was under his control. To destroy Mother, and eliminate the human race from all the cosmoses. Though again, because the Eden's One doesn't really have much by way of a personality, it's hard to really work out a motivation for it. Beyond some sort of... I could see it maybe working as an instrument of fate, or something. That could be a way to do it, given that we know that humanity ceases to exist in the future. That the Eden's One, sees itself as the harbinger of fate, that it is simply doing what is fated. I don't know. Anyway, back with Wise and Connor on the bridge. Wise calls out, "It's getting ready to attack. The Zero be in no state for battle. Evade." And Pino announces, "Eden Zero emergency takeoff. Then we'll go into outer space." But the fish head on the Eden's One opens its mouth and fires a big old laser that cuts through the Eden Zero's shields. Rebecca and Happy are knocked down by it. And Laguna just questions, a direct hit? And Wise, what kind of a weapon can... And I'm not quite sure whose line this is. One that you won't find on the Eden Zero. It's going right through our protection matrix. And Hermit calls out, retreat. Connor, did you hear me? And Connor tells her, I know. I be trying. And the ship takes off away from the Eden's One, but the Eden's One is right behind it. It's coming after us. And Connor tells the crew, I'll shake her off, with a very meaningful look towards Rebecca, who is definitely fueling his motivation here. I swear it. And then we leave them alone for a bit to go back to Lendard Palace, where Elsie and Justice are just kind of hanging out. Just having their talk. It's kind of a bad time for a talk, given that our old friend the Chronophage is going to be here soon. But Justice is trying to get answers for everything that's been going on with Elsie. You knew that Aknoella was your mother? Yes. I heard that after the war, she gave up her humanity and became a machine. But I had no idea she was still on Lendard, using the Mobius to create her dragons. And Justice is still not quite ready to, forgive Elsie. He still sort of sees Elsie as, at least in some way, morally corrupt. She was your own mother. And Elsie stops him. I don't think of her as my mother. I never did. She only ever cared about wealth and power. Of course, she did pretend to be a caring mother, in front of her daughter. And Justice looks at her and questions, and you're saying the war was really about the Mobius? Yes. Even our political marriage was arranged as a way to secure a supply route for our weapons. I learned that the Lendard royal family had been planning to use the Mobius to take over the entire Kaide cosmos. I was so young then. I didn't know how to stop my parents. So I went to another kingdom I trusted for advice. As a result, we had war. Okay, so she's casually mentioning another kingdom? I'm curious if we'll get to see any of them. But I imagine if you tell another kingdom, hey, the king and queen are planning to make an army of infinite soldiers, of course they would go to war to stop that. But Elsie goes on, many people who lived on Lendard died. My school, your family, it wasn't supposed to be like this. I'm so sorry, James. And, we see again that sort of self-hatred that has very much been brought to the forefront, especially since Goen and Hyoga's death, and Jesse's deaths, all sort of had made her this sort of self-hating mass of negative emotions. And Justice sort of comments, I don't know if what you did was right, but I can't say it was wrong either. And look at me. I had so much pent-up anger and hate, and I took it all out on you. No. I took it out on a little girl who didn't have a better choice. And so yeah, they're sort of coming to an accord, which I don't know. I always figured at some point Justice was basically a good guy, and so we would get to some kind of peace between them, but it would come much. They would have at least one big final fight before we got to something like this, which didn't really happen. As Elsie notes, to counteract my theory, I don't want to fight anyone anymore. I don't want any more people to die. And Justice comments to think, that's how you felt all this time, and I never managed to see it. I don't even know why I was fighting anymore. And Elsie looks at him, for justice, no? And James tells her, no. The man Justice doesn't exist anymore. And then we leave them there. We leave them there with their reconciliation. Now they're just the power of a good conversation to finally reach reconciliation after all these years. And we head back to the ships. Moving away from that piece at lightning speed, as they are now above Lendard. The Eden Zero barely avoiding all of the missiles the One is throwing at it. Connor notes, she be fast. And Rebecca calls, get us away from it, Connor. And a bunch of the missiles are homing right in for the Eden Zero. And then Justice, we cut back, we have that little, 2-line cut to the Eden ships. And then we come down, back to Elsie and Justice again. Thinking back on it, it doesn't make sense that Homura killed Creed. My narrow-mindedness skewed my sense of justice. Yeah, it really didn't, did it? It's a little late for all, and that's, I've seen the complaints, and I don't fully disagree. This arc brought up a lot of things, and then didn't really do anything with them. Aknoella is Elsie's mom for a couple pages, and then she dies. Cure, we at least get a couple chapters with him. But going back with Justice also, because there's something anticlimactic about a lot of this arc. It's a weird feeling when by and large it all works, but like I've been saying since Cure died, it just feels weird, right? like, part of this just feels weird in a way I can't quite put my finger on. Anyway, Elsie questions, are you still going to arrest me? No, I'm done with all of that. Then you better go. The chronophage will be here soon. And Justice turns to her, you're not leaving? This is my home. I want to stay here. Okay. Okay, that's a choice. Are we having... Something's gonna happen here, right? Like, Elsie is not committing suicide. I mean, that being said... I'm thinking about Shora and Ijuna. Let's see how this plays out, and see if there are echoes, either in similarity or in difference, to what happened to Shora and Ijuna at the end. Anyway... James then leans over and, like, puts his arm around Elsie. And finally, something similar to a Jerza romance moment, just not with Jerza. And Elsie looks at him, James, I just thought, maybe we're thinking the same thing. And he turns to her, we lost so much time. Now the chronophage... And Elsie responds, we'll cleanse it for us. So... that... Y'all are way too young to put faith in the chronophage. Like, remember back on Gilst, where, like, the 80-year-old was like, oh, maybe I'll find new life with the chronophage? Even she got wiped back, thousands of years. It's not cleansing your time if you just cease to exist. That is not how this works. I don't know. It's... Also, I'm thinking about it in terms, like... Given that Elsie and her, of course, obvious physical similarities to Urza, my mind goes to Urza's attempted suicide in the Tower of Heaven arc. Given that it was also an intended murder-suicide with Jalal, as I recall. It's been a long time since I watched that arc. And how... When Urza snaps out of it, she has the line, you don't die for your friends, you live for them. That, mirrored with Elsie, if Elsie dies here, is a choice. It's a thing. It's a thing Mashima's playing with. It's something. It's definitely something. But then we're back to the ship. We're back to the ships. The Zero is taking heavy damage. The wings are, like, fully covered in smoke. The masthead is charred and dirtied. Right? Is the masthead the figure of the ship, or is it the sails? Because not the sail, the figurehead. I think I'm thinking of. Anyway, Hermit calls out Connor, fast travel, and Connor tells her, I know. We be charging the energy as we speak. And this is Hermit and Shiki just arrived, and Wise calls to Shiki, Shiki, what happened? I thought you beat Ziggy. And Pino, who does know that happened, questions, then who is piloting that ship? And Shiki tells them all, nobody's on it. The ship is moving of its own will. And Wise is like, just like me, what the fuck is going on right now? But Laguna calls out, making the jump to fast travel. And they start to move. They've basically gotten in the way at this point. With fast travel going on, they can get away from the Eden's One. And as they're leaving, Rebecca calls to Shiki, Shiki, look. And we see the chronophage approaching Lendard. The chronophage is attacking Lendard. It's eating its time. And Lendard is swallowed up by the chronophage. As the Eden Zero moves into hyperspace, for lack of a better term, the chronophage leaves Lendard. And we get to see Lendard as the chronophage comes. And Elsie and James share this last moment as, like, the winds of time ravage Lendard. It seems we see Lendard before it was all mechanical, back when it was much more stone and a natural village. And they have one moment of looking around. And Elsie questions, do you remember this place? Yes. It's where you teased me. And Elsie returns to how she was, one eye, or both eyes, a little girl again, That same line from the flashback on Foresta. I know, James. Let's kiss. And the little baby James, my first love. And the chronophage leaves Lendard. We don't see how much time has passed, though I see the bottom of the page has jamais, so maybe we will. But Rebecca and Shiki just watch it and comment, Elsie. And with that, we come back to Xiaomei. The chronophage feasted on Lendard's time, ruthlessly devouring 260 years. But somewhere in the backward rolling moments, there may have been a short love story between a little boy and a little girl. And now, our story moves on toward its final battle. And that's where we leave off. Okay. So I brought up 2 different moments in the Majima canon to talk about Elsie and Justice, right? And it's weird. I'm starting to almost feel a tear coming. Because even reading it, like, as I was sort of frustrated that this whole thing was happening, I was like, oh, this is gonna be, if this happens, I'm gonna be a little mad. But it got me in the end. I can feel it. I'm trying to talk about it as a reviewer and not as someone who really cares about Elsie in particular. Because I don't like it. I don't think it was the right choice. But I'm thinking about the Urza Jalal moment in Tower of Heaven. And I'm thinking about Shora and Ijuna. How there are a lot of parallels in this scene and the Shora and Ijuna scene. In both of them, we have the sort of somewhat of a reformed villain in... Did Shora really reform, or did he just sort of... I don't remember exactly what Shora's mental state was at the very end, but I remember him dying in, like, genuine affection for Ijuna. And Ijuna accepting it, even though she really shouldn't have, because I had problems with that happening too. But in both of them, in both this and at the end of the Aoi War, they stay on the mid-destruction planet. They don't have to. They could have escaped, and they choose to die together. And it's weird that Majima did that twice, right? Like, we can agree that's a weird choice. Yeah? Like, I don't know. It just doesn't really work for me. Like, it's a sweet little moment as they sort of die together. Or they're literally erased from existence, but it just... Because I think about I talk about the Aoi War being one of my favorite Majima arcs of all time, because it is really fucking good. But I also really didn't like the Shora Ijuna bit. A moment I like much better, that I talked about before, was one of those lines that has stuck with me for the past 10 years since I first saw it. Was Urza, like I said earlier, Urza's "you don't die for your friends, you live for them." And that's, I don't know. Like, I get that, like, Eden Zero is very much trying to be a darker story than Fairy Tail. That is kind of its whole... Like, it's a big part of its thing, is being darker in a way than... Being dark in a way that Fairy Tail never was. I think that in a lot of ways that tends to be a bad impulse. The series' worst impulses are, like, its BDSM bits. And this is another one of those dark impulses that's also kind of bad. Because I don't think the series improves by having, Elsie and James have a lover suicide as they are literally erased from the universe. Like, I don't think that was the right move. I don't know. It also, I drew attention to this earlier. It continues to, to feel like the series is just closing up plot threads. And Xiaomei at the end says our story moves on toward its final battle. And, like, it feels like, not really in an incredibly natural way, but just that Majima is saying, okay, what it reminds me of Kenny's death in Attack on Titan. How the Kenny crew, the season was nearing its end, and it felt like Isayama was just bored of them. and so he dropped a bunch of boulders on their head and killed them all. That's what a lot of the way, and I might have brought up this comparison before, but that's what a lot of the things that are happening in this arc feel like. Like, and up until this point, they've all worked for the most part. You know, Holy being the one to kill Cure worked. Even Aknoella's death worked. Ziggy's death worked. But it also feels a little bit like Mashima's just like rushing to end things because he wants to move on. I don't know what he wants to move on to. But like he's a little bored with this plotline. And to be fair, killing Kenny faster led to one of Titan's best arcs. So like maybe it will lead to good things. But it's just it's a plot choice I just can't really be on board with. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like them going out like that. And, you know, I had kept bringing up the theory all through this arc that, like, what happens if they bring the chronophage down and it doesn't do anything? And it goes back, like, a month or like, an hour or two, you know, to as a callback to like, Altier's moment in the Grand Magic games, and also as, like, this sort of, they do all this, and it has no effect. Though in a darker twist from the Altier moment, it actually makes things worse from the heroes. While Altier's 1 minute ends up being the minute that turns the tide of the battle that night, this ends up reinvigorating Ziggy and the Eden's One and the Dark Stars and all of them. But no, the 260 years is just like, okay, it's gone. That's, you know, instead of the sort of exciting sense of things can be in play that weren't in play, it's just gone to zero. I don't know. It's just it's an ending that didn't work for me. And it's a shame coming off the Aoi War, where with the exception of the Shora and Ijuna thing, everything did work for me. But like the more I pick at the Lendard arc, the less it really worked. And I think it's I've seen the complaint, and I think I've even voiced the complaint once or twice, that like they bring up the reveal that this is Elsie's home planet, and she does so little in this arc. Like she has her initial fight with Ziggy, and then she's locked up for most of the arc. And then her friends all die. She breaks free with that. And then she kills Aknoella and then dies. And like even the long promised Elsie James flashback was like 4 pages of monologuing. Like that was it. It's just it's I don't know, it just feels hollow in a way. That's kind of my best way to describe it. Like all of these plots that are just being brought up and then are just sort of dropped. You know, like for like the Lendard flashback was teased for so long. And then it's like a handful of pages and we don't really feel anything about it at all. It's just, yeah, Lendard sucked. Maybe if I were older there would have been a better way to stop what happened, but there wasn't. So, you know, moving on. It's Cure brings up all of these interesting themes of justice and how far we are willing, and like the value of optics and the way that people manipulate evil to seem better. And there's a lot of interesting stuff there, and then Cure's dead. Aknoella would have just been Irene again. Like it's fair to get her. If there's any of those I'm fine with Mashima blowing past is Aknoella, because again, it would have just been Irene again. But still, I think that's another thing that Mashima just kind of blew past in a way that I don't think benefits the series. I don't know. I mean, I'm still excited to see like what is going on. What is the deal with the Eden's One? Like, I need more context for the Eden's One. But it's an end to an arc that just leaves the whole thing feeling kind of weird and wonky in a way I'm not quite sure I like. I don't know. It didn't work for me. It just felt. A part of it maybe feels like it's an attempt to like elicit, like it's a kind of superficial attempt to elicit emotion. Oh, what's gonna make people cry? Elsie dying, and so she, rather than finding a real way to kill her, she commits suicide. Okay, all right. I don't know. It's just I'm not big on it. And as an end to an arc, as the Kaide War arc as a whole, as the Lendard arc as a whole, there's just a lot of parts of it that are just kind of disappointing. Especially coming after, you know, a top tier arc like Aoi War. It's just it's fine. It's not bad. Most of it. Some of it's kind of bad. This chapter was not good. But the arc, it worked for the most part, I guess. I don't know. Well, we'll see where we're going from here, because maybe maybe we'll somehow get some answers from the Eden's one. I don't know. Because of the way the series is set up right now, I don't know all of the mysteries that were teased in this arc, especially with the Shining Stars and Dark Stars origins. I don't know what the Eden's one can have to do with that. What anyone who is still alive can have to do with that. I don't know. I don't know where Mushroom is going with this, and we'll just have to wait and find out. So with that said, I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you'll enjoy the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, or, you know, do whatever makes you happy, you know? And as always, your life is your own, okay? Bye!